Welcome to the Strong Baby Mama Show. I'm your host, Cortega Collins. The Strong Baby Mama Show and movement is about empowering single parents. I have accomplished a lot of things in my life, academically, professionally, but one of the most difficult things that I have ever had to do was to be a single parent. So the Strong Baby Mama Show is about encouraging, inspiring, and motivating single moms to move past their circumstances, to rise above their hindrances, and to go on and live successful lives. My goal is to make sure that you know what you're going through is only temporary, and if you stay consistent and be persistent with your goals, they will be achieved. With that theme tonight, we have a very special guest in the studio today, Rachael Hubbard. Welcome to the show, Rachael.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so glad to have you here. So glad to have you. So, as I mentioned, what we're talking about tonight is overcoming stressors in our lives, things that could ordinarily break somebody, and still going on to achieve, to achieve their goals. So, when I first read your story, I was just moved with just compassion and just moved with all the things that you overcame because I had no idea. You are the epitome of not looking like what you've been through.
Thank you.
So I want to just start off and just kind of ask you what makes you a strong baby mama. Tell me what you went through in your single parenting.
Sure. So I had my daughter at the age of 18.
Okay.
And so I had actually been living on my own at that point for about a year. I was living with my daughter's father. And so at that time we had been together for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And so he was abusive, physically abusive. And
Okay.
so it was a challenge at that time living with him and, I guess trying to meet my goals and be the great person that I was destined to be. So just struggling with being a great mother and being strong for my daughter and for myself and being a great example for her while achieving my goals.
Okay. So tell me, Rachael, about one of the first time, the first time that you can think of that he became physical with you.
Okay. So one of the, I would say, most times that he became physical with me would have been when my daughter was here. And so I remember he was working at the time. And so I dropped him off at work. And I'm not sure, like I said, he was very compulsive and he's not truthful. And so I took him to work and he went into work and came back out. We were arguing about money. And so instead of going into work for his shift, he left. We were at his place of employment. So he left with me and he was very upset. We had gotten into an argument. And so we were going back home. He was driving. He was speeding and swerving in and out of traffic on the highway. And so, I could already tell, I would know when he would get to that point to where, he would reach that Jekyll and Hyde type, that other personality, that other side would come out.
Right.
So we got home, and so I remember getting to our apartment, and we were going in the house, right? So my daughter was still in her pumpkin seat. So I remember walking into the house, and at that point, I remember him grabbing me and trying to bring me into the house. And I could sense that he was at that point. So I was trying to calm him down and try not to do anything or say anything to make him upset. And so, like I said, I was trying not to go in the house because when he gets me in the house, he kind of traps me in, takes my phone, my keys. So I was trying to avoid going into the house, and He got me into the house. And at that time, actually, his brother's girlfriend was living with us, and so she was home. And so she heard the commotion outside. He was trying to get me to come in, and I was saying, no, I won't come in. And so she ended up coming outside, and he took me in, and my daughter's as well in her pumpkin seat. And so he basically was trying to attack me. And so his brother's girlfriend was standing in front of me, putting her full body in front of me, and he was yelling, saying that I was the reason why he wouldn't keep his job, and he was very upset. So he was trying to, hit me and anything to get around her, right? So her body was in front of him. And so, mind you, my daughter's there in her pumpkin seat. And so we had an altercation. Her children were there as well. They were in the other room. And so, I mean, he was just aggressively coming at me. And so she blocked me. And I think that was one of the first incidents, especially in front of my daughter.
Right.
That was definitely an eye-opener for me. He was trying to smother me with a pillow. He did many things. The incidents run together.
Okay.
But he was upset. And I can only imagine what more he would have done if she was not there.
Right.
But that was definitely an eye-opener. Why are you doing this in front of my child? She's there. Even though she's an infant, she can't see. She doesn't necessarily know what's going on. That says a lot about,
right.
your character.
So what went through your mind after the whole incident was over? What was going through your mind?
I was fearful. I was terrified. And so I can't tell you what ended it at that time. I don't remember. And also, so she was trying to calm him down, right? So he smoked cigarettes. So she was trying to get him a cigarette. He was trying to burn me with the cigarette. And so at some point, I guess she was able to calm him down. And so we were in different rooms. For me, it was just traumatizing. And it was an eye-opener, like I said, because I didn't want my daughter seeing that, the audacity that you have to do this, for one, and then to do it in front of our child. This is his child. It was definitely an eye open for me. I was afraid. I was fearful. I was hurt. It was tough.
So after that first time, Rachel, how long did you stay in the relationship with him?
For a year. So we were together for 4 years total.
Okay.
So I would say after that, we were still together for another 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay. So tell the viewers then, because I'm sure that there are some women who are in relationships, or there are people who are watching who know women who are in abusive relationships and they stay, and they wonder why they would endure something like that and just not leave. So tell us why. Give us some insight on why you would stay in a physically abusive relationship with a man.
So I would say, again, at this time, I met him when we were 17. So he had those 4 years of my life. And so I honestly, I say I was naive. I didn't know any better. And for me, I always say for women that are going through that situation now, never say what you would or would not do. You're not in that situation.
Right.
You can't speak to that. So for me, this was my first serious relationship. I thought that was it. I knew that he loved me. I thought that he loved me. And I didn't know that there was better. I thought that was my life, right?
Okay.
So we had good times and bad times. We had a lot of good times, but we had those bad times. And so for me, I think I just thought that was my life, and I didn't know that was more for me. Day to day, it was, how do I manage and how do I get through this? Not what can I do to leave.
So you basically had accepted this as
yes.
what your life and your relationship was going to be like.
Exactly.
Did you have any other positive relationships to model after? Did you know what a healthy relationship looked like?
That's a great question. I didn't, my mother was a single parent, right? So my father was also in my life. He lived out of state, so I would visit him during the holidays and the breaks. But as far as in my home day to day, it was just me and my mom. She was a single mom. She did what she needed to do, and obviously did a good job raising me. But I don't know that I saw that growing up.
Right. Do you think that you stayed because you didn't want your daughter to be a product of a broken home?
That
you didn't have a father, and you wanted your daughter to have more. So you stayed.
Yes.
For the facade of being a family.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I grew up with values, right? And those values were ingrained in me. So, you don't have sex before marriage, right? So here I am, lost my virginity to this man, and we have a child shortly after. And so I wanted my family.
Yeah.
I wanted my family. I didn't want her to not have her father in her home. I wanted her to have her family,
right?
And I wanted to be with her father. So that's exactly why, that was the underlying motivator of why I kept trying, and
that's
I
typical.
I stayed. Yes,
that's typical of so many women. We want our happily ever after. We want the the 2 kids and the 2.5 kids and the picket fence and the mom and the dad, and so like so many other moms, you essentially sacrifice yourself,
absolutely,
and your safety, and your own well-being for what you thought was a family.
Absolutely.
And I think that what other people who are on the outside looking in don't realize is that nobody sets out to be a single parent. We want to try to avoid that at all costs. So we stick and stay through things that people think that they would not endure. But you make a good point. Never say what you'll do, because you do not know what you'll do. Okay, so Rachel, you told us that you were in the relationship for 4 years. Obviously, you're not in the relationship with him anymore. So tell us about the situation that made you know this has to stop today.
Sure. So coming up on 4 years, I mean, I got tired. He needed me to survive. And so I just was tired. I knew my worth. I knew that I did not deserve this. We would have these falling out incidents where he would get physical with me, and then the police would be involved, or I would come back, right? He would talk a good game, and he will never do it again. So at this point, 4 years later, I'm tired. And so I mentally, I checked out. I was done, but he wouldn't leave, right? He didn't have anywhere to go. So he convinced me that he had to stay. He wouldn't leave. So towards the end, I would say this is going to be 2012. Actually, in October or so, we had an incident where I was done. I told him, I wanted him to leave, and he actually was arrested for a period of time. And so at that point, we were done. We had broken up. Mm-hmm. And so after he was in jail for maybe a few days to a week or so. So he was released. And at that time, I was still allowing him to see his daughter. I would go out to his brother's. I was working with his brother to arrange, getting her back and forth. So at that point, contact with his brother turned into contact with him. And so he convinced me, this is November, right? So we're not together. He hadn't been staying with me for a few weeks to a few months. And so he convinced me that he needed to come home with me for a PO visit. Yeah. So, and I want to say it was maybe a Thursday or Friday. And so he tells me that the PO visit is going to be at some point over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, right? So that's what he tells me.
Okay.
And so
and you had no prior knowledge of what a PO visit, so you had no idea.
Well, I knew he was on house arrest. Mm-hmm. I knew, from being with him, I got introduced to these things. Okay. So, I mean, looking back at it, a PO visit on the weekend, does that make sense?
Right.
No, it doesn't. But at the time, and so I told him no. I remember talking with him, no, you can't come, no. And I'm picking my daughter up from him, no. And so he convinces me that he needs to come back. So I said, okay, that's fine. So he comes home with me, right? And so we get to my apartment, my apartment that I had. I'm in school at this point. And so I was actually going out with my friends that night. And so I had already had arrangements ahead of time. And so he wanted to take my car and go see his friends. And I said, no, I have plans. And so my daughter, he was upset with the plans that I had and that I wouldn't allow him to use the car, right? So I said, you know what, I'm just going to take our daughter to my mother since you're so upset. So I leave for the night, and I come back. And so I want to say it may be midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And so I get home, and there's a suicide note, right, on in the house. And so I read it, and he's saying that, by the time I'll find him in the park, and tell his brother sorry for taking his, he writes his letter out, and I know him, and I know the games that he plays. Okay. Right? So my first thought was, where are you at? I knew he wasn't in the park, so I'm looking around for him, and so I find him under the bed. And so I'm asking him. He told me before I left that he would be gone when I got back, because he was just so upset of the altercation that we had before I left. Right. And so I find him, and so he always has, he's calm and collective, and then when he goes there, he he's there,
From
right?
0 to 60.
0 to 60. So, we were talking and he was upset, I have nowhere to go. And so he goes that quick, he goes from 0 to 60. We're in the living room, right? So I can see it. Like he literally he's at 60 and I can see it in his eyes and his face. And so he tells me to go to the bedroom, because we're in the living room at the front door, we're in apartments. And so I think at this point, that was always his thing. Let's go to the back, come back here, because maybe the traffic at the door, he didn't want me in the room. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I'm tired. I'm like, no, whatever you're going to do it right here. Like, I'm tired. No. And so he tells me to unlock my phone. And so he said, you can unlock your phone or I'm going to, punch you. So I kind of have no choice at this point. So I'm unlocking my phone. He's in my phone, finding some things that he doesn't like, and so I won't go into that, but he's scheming on the individuals in my phone and things that he would do to them, and we eventually go to the back room, and so this is an all-night altercation, right? So I get home at midnight, 2 a.m., and I had to be at work the next day at 3 p.m. Okay. So the whole night he takes me to the back room, he has me to take my clothes off, and he abused me.
Okay. So he raped you.
That too.
Mm-hmm.
That too. But I had bruises from head to toe.
Wow.
We also had some the bedposts, right? The wooden bedposts that are under the bed.
Mm-hmm.
He had broken our furniture, so they were in the laying in the room. So he, hit me with those. It was just a long, drawn out night, right? Okay. So in the beginning, he was really physical and abusive, and at some point, he had kind of come down a bit, but he was still up there, and so he kept me there the whole night. And it was just a long night.
Okay.
It was a long night. It's kind of, for me, it's blurry. Like I said, it runs together, and so. The next, so the morning comes, the day, and every time he gets physical with me, he takes my keys, takes my phone, so I'm stuck, right?
Okay.
He traps me. And so my shift is coming up, right? Next day, 3 p.m. And so at this point, I think I was numb, mm-hmm. and I'm just thinking, let me get away from you.
Right.
Yeah. So I told him, I'm going to work, and so trying to gauge where he is. And at this point, he had come down. Mm-hmm. He kind of come down a little. So I said, I'm going to work. And so he said, well, let me drop you off. And I said, no, you're here for one thing. I said, let me, and he wanted to drop me off. So I said, at this point, we're not arguing. If you want to drop, that's fine. He knew what was coming. So he drops me off at work. And so I walk in, and at this, I'm just really calm, and like I said, I think I'm numb at this point. So I walk into work, and as soon as I see some of my co-workers, I just cry, just break down. So as soon as I got there, and I was so gone, I'm thinking, well, when he comes to pick me up, the police can be here to get him, right?
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. And so we get there. So they, of course, they're calling up. They call the police, and
so just a second, Rachel. I mm-hmm. want to make sure, because I don't know how well the viewers are listening or following, mm-hmm. but I want to make sure that they understand that he was physically abusing you all night long. So 9 to 12 hours, yes. I think, of physical abuse. He was beating you for 9.
Yes, there were periods in between where he was physically abusive. Sexually, mm-hmm. Abusive, and it wasn't the full time, but it was on and off. Right.
But you got no rest all night. You were being abused.
Yeah.
Even when he wasn't physically abusing you, there was the mental abuse because you never knew what was coming next. Right. Yes. Okay. Right. So, but that was the final situation, and from that, your coworker saw it, and you were able to get out of the relationship, and you never turned back from that.
Yes.
Okay. So that is an amazing story of triumph and overcoming. That was so difficult, I'm sure, for you to endure. And again, like I said, so you guys look at her, you see, she does not look like she has been through that situation, right? So this segment is really to encourage women who are in an abusive relationship to this is a judgment-free zone. The Strong Baby Mama Show is judgment-free. We don't judge you for whatever your situation is, why you became a baby mama, what your relationship is like. But for those of you who are watching who are in an abusive relationship, We want you to know that there's somebody who understands why you stay, who went through what you're going through, and she had the courage to leave. So you have the power to walk away from this abusive relationship. You have the power, and this does not have to define you. Your story does not have to end here. So, in our next segment, we're going to come back after a break, and we are going to talk to Rachael. So tune in next week so that we can hear the rest of Rachel's story and what she did, how she was able to overcome. Specifically, Rachael, what I want to talk about next time is you said that you knew that you deserved better. Absolutely. So I want the viewers to know how you knew that, how you got to the point that you knew that this was not what you wanted and that you deserved more. So we are out of time today. So I'm sure that there's somebody who can understand what Rachael went through. When I first read her story, I literally cried. So if you're crying, I understand. I was there too when I heard her story because she's so beautiful and so nice and so sweet and so kind. I can't believe that somebody would hurt her like that. But the story doesn't end there. So if you're interested and you want to hear more about what happened next and what has happened in Rachel's life since that abuse, tune in next week, especially if you're in a relationship like that right now and you want motivation, encouragement, inspiration to be able to get out of it. Tune in next week. So this has been the Strong Baby Mama Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Subscribe to our channel, first of all. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you will be notified when we have new content. You do not want to miss next week. Rachel's going to be back with us. She's going to tell us more of her overcoming story and how she was able to get out of that relationship and to go on to a better life. There is life outside of the triumph that she endured. So before we go, very quickly, Rachael, if you could just spend 30 seconds and just look into the camera and tell any single mom who may be in an abusive relationship, give her some encouragement.
So I would say, first of all, you are not alone. I was fortunate enough to have a support system. And so if you have a support system, lean on them. If you don't, there are resources and there are people, there are organizations out here that will help you and support you. Also, for me, it was hard, right? It was tough. But I will say it won't get better. But if you are able to walk away, the healing, you can never completely heal from that, but it will get better with time. And if you can't find the strength to do it for yourself, do it for your children. Do it for your children. That's what I would say.
So you heard it directly from Rachael, someone who has gone through what you are going through, and she was able to get out and overcome. She made a very good point. You are not alone. Even if you don't have someone in your corner that you can go to immediately, there are resources available to you. There are organizations and people that will help you to get through the struggle that you're going through. You don't have to make this your life story. Rachael made a very good point. In the beginning, she thought that this was her life, and she just accepted that this was how her life was going to be. And at some point, the light bulb came on. So we're here tonight to be your light bulb, to let you know that your life does not have to be this way. You are able to overcome the situation that you're going through. You are able to come out of this situation. And she made another very good point as well. She made some very good points about how she was able to overcome this. So I want you to remember her story. Tune in next week for more tips on what you can do to overcome this situation you are in. And even though Rachel's situation was physical, your significant other may not be hitting you with their fist, but emotional abuse is just as damaging. Sometimes I think even more so. So if you are being berated and controlled, and she started off saying that he was very controlling and manipulative in the beginning, that's a form of abuse as well. So I want you to recognize that abuse transcends the physical. It's more than just the physical. It can be emotional, financial. There are many forms of abuse. And you deserve better.
Yes.
And also, you are able to get out of this situation. So if you are in this situation, you want to let us know about what you're going through. Leave us a comment. Let us know. Engage with us and let us know. Don't forget to like and comment on this video to let us know that you enjoyed this video, that you know somebody who may have gone through this, who's going through this, who needs help. Leave us a comment and let us know how you felt about this video or what you think about what we discussed today. But if you are in this situation and you want to get out, I want you to know that you are strong. You are able to do it. You can be more than a conqueror. You have the strength to be able to get out of this situation because you're stronger than you think.